It took just 81 minutes. Two men dressed as police officers entered Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum and walked out with $500 million in art, and more than 30 years later, not a single piece has ever been recovered. But before we dive into the night of the crime, we have to rewind back. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum isn't just a gallery, it's a time capsule, built to replicate a 15th century Venetian palace. It was the passion project of a wealthy art collector. But in 1990, its beauty hid a fatal flaw. The museum's security was practically antique: 2 unarmed guards, no motion sensors in the galleries, and a single VHS surveillance system. It was just after 1:20 a.m. on March 18, 1990. Two men dressed as Boston police officers rang the buzzer at the side entrance of the museum. The guard at the front desk broke protocol and let them in. Once inside, these officers told him he looked familiar, then asked him to step away from the desk, but that was a trap. In less than a minute, both guards were handcuffed and taken to the museum's basement. With the guards out of the way, the thieves had full control. For the next 81 minutes, they roamed the museum's halls, choosing what to take and what to leave behind. They weren't in a rush, they didn't panic. In fact, they sat down and examined certain pieces closely before deciding. They stole 13 works of art, including Vermeer's The Concert, which alone is worth over $200 million. They took Rembrandt's Storm of the Sea Galilee, his only known seascape, a Manet, a Flink, several sketches by Degas. They even removed a bronze eagle finial from an Napoleonic flagstaff and a small Chinese vase. In some rooms, they smashed glass. In others, they left empty frames hanging on the walls. It's still unclear why they chose those specific works, but their selection has led some to believe they were acting on instructions, maybe for a private collector. By 2:45 a.m., they were gone. The museum lay silent, frames empty. The morning of March 18th, the next shift of museum staff arrived and found the museum eerily quiet. After some searching, they discovered the guards bound in the basement. The police were called, and soon the FBI took over. What they found was stunning: 13 pieces of art missing, worth over $500 million at the time. News of the heist spread quickly, dominating headlines. The FBI considered everything: inside jobs, gang activity, international smugglers. But there was no clear path. Every potential lead seemed to collapse. Agents interrogated Abbott, but nothing concrete tied him to the crime. No motive, no payout, just bad judgment. Still, some believe he may have been manipulated. Attention then turned to local criminals. Boston's underworld was buzzing, and one name stood out: Carmine Romano, a mobster tied to the Patriarca family. Another suspect, Miles Connor, was a convicted art thief, claimed he knew who did it, but his stories kept changing, and he was in prison at the time. With local suspects going nowhere, the FBI explored a darker possibility: organized crime. Investigators looked into the Merlino gang and the Patriarca family. Rumors suggested the artwork had been moved through safe houses, or hidden behind fake walls, or even buried in basements. One name that resurfaced often was Bobby Donati, a known associate of the mob and friend of Miles Connor. Just a year before the heist, Donati had been seen casing the museum, and he was later found murdered, possibly to keep him silent. While organized crime was a major focus, some investigators were convinced the real answer was closer to home: an inside job. The Gardner Museum security flaws were no secret, but the thieves didn't just exploit them, they seemed to know them intimately. The motion detectors showed that the thieves avoided several high traffic areas, bypassed hidden sensors, and never triggered any alarms. They even found the basement without hesitation, a space most visitors didn't know existed. Some staff believed someone on the inside may have tipped off the thieves. As the years rolled on, the Gardner heist slipped from the headlines, but the investigation never stopped. The case was handed from agent to agent, each one chasing leads that dried up almost as fast as they emerged. In the late 90s, a sting operation in Florida briefly reignited hope. An informant claimed to have seen one of the stolen paintings in a warehouse, but it turned out to be a scam. In 2003, another tip led agents to a remote barn in Connecticut. Again, nothing. Then, in 2006, a man in prison claimed he'd seen the concert in a secretive collector's home in Brazil. More than 3 decades later, the Gardner heist remains one of the greatest unsolved crimes in history. No arrests, no artwork recovered, just empty frames and unanswered questions. Was it the mob, an inside job, or something even stranger? The mystery continues to grip the world, not just for what was stolen, but for how cleanly it was done. If you have any information, the $10 million reward is still active.